Luke Carson was the kind of cowboy people noticed without him ever trying to draw attention. He moved through life quietly, doing his work on the ranch with steady hands and a calm face. Some folks said he was shy. Others said he carried too many thoughts in his head and didn't know how to speak them out loud. Maybe both were true. He had grown up on these wide plains, learning to listen more than talk. And because he listened so much, he often looked as if he was thinking about something far away, even when he was standing right in front of someone. One warm afternoon, the sky was clear, the wind light, and Luke rode into town to buy simple supplies: rope, nails, a few tools, and flour for the ranch cook. He expected the day to go like all others, quiet, fast, and without any surprises. But the moment he pushed open the door of the general store, a small bell chimed, and his entire day changed. Standing near the shelf of canned goods was a young woman he had never seen before. Her chestnut hair was tied loosely, falling over one shoulder. Her dress was plain but neat, the kind someone wore when they valued comfort over fancy looks. She moved with a confident sort of grace. Not loud or attention-seeking, just steady and sure. Luke didn't see a customer walking. He saw a story he didn't understand yet. His eyes stayed on her a second too long, and just as he took one step forward, she turned around, and he accidentally bumped into her basket. Her hand shot out at the same moment his did to keep the basket from falling. Their fingers brushed lightly, and Luke felt his breath catch in his chest. She looked up, her eyes bright and sharp, with a hint of humor he didn't expect. "Easy there, cowboy," she said with a small smile. "Keep your eyes in check. Or do they always wander with your thoughts?" Her tone wasn't rude. It was teasing. But Luke froze anyway. His cheeks warmed. Words felt trapped in his throat. He tried to answer, but all he managed was, I didn't mean to. I was just..." She lifted one eyebrow, amused. "Just thinking? Or just staring?" The corners of her mouth lifted a bit more, and Luke felt even more embarrassed. He didn't want her to think he was someone careless or rude. He finally pulled himself together enough to speak. "I wasn't staring," he said softly. "Not on purpose." She laughed lightly. "It's all right. This town is new to me. I guess I'm worth a glance or two." Quote. Before Luke could think of what to say next, she picked up her basket and stepped around him. Something in him reacted before his mind did. He followed her with his eyes, not with the kind of stare she teased him about, but with genuine interest. There was something about her that felt strong and warm at the same time. He didn't know her name yet, but he knew she wasn't just another visitor passing through. The day continued in its usual rhythm, but Luke kept replaying her words in his mind. "Cowboy, keep your eyes in check." The sentence felt light-hearted, but it stuck with him more than it should have. He finished buying his supplies, paid the shopkeeper, and stepped outside, half hoping he might see her again. But she was gone. For the next few days, life returned to its slow and steady pace on the ranch. Luke worked with the horses, fixed fences, and rode across the fields. Yet he found himself thinking about her. He wondered who she was, why she came to town, and if she had anyone waiting for her in that small home near the creek he had heard about. The ranch hands noticed a slight change in him. Usually, Luke answered their jokes with short nods. Now, when they spoke to him, he seemed distracted, almost thoughtful. "You all right, Luke?" one coworker asked while they loaded hay. "You've been walking around like your mind's chasing clouds." Luke shook his head. "Just thinking. That's all." "Thinking about what?" He didn't answer, and his silence made the others laugh. A few days later, fate stepped in again. Luke was riding back to the ranch after checking the cattle on the open field. The sky had turned dark with heavy clouds, and thunder rolled in the distance. Rain was coming, and fast. As he approached the old dirt road that led to the town, he noticed a wagon stopped near a fallen tree branch. A horse stood tied nearby, restless from the storm building overhead. And then he saw her. She stood beside the wagon, her hands on her hips, frustration written all over her face. The same young woman from the general store. Her name, he soon learned, was Clara. Luke slowed his horse and called out, "Need help?" Clara looked up, clearly surprised to see him. "You again? Your thoughts brought you here too?" He felt the joke, but this time he didn't freeze. He climbed down from his horse and inspected the broken wagon wheel. It was cracked and stuck at an angle. "You won't be able to move it," he said gently. "Not before the rain hits." One. And one. She crossed her arms. "I figured that out." He smiled faintly, and for a second, she smiled back. Working together, they managed to lift the wagon enough to place a temporary wooden support under it. Luke offered to walk with her to the closest shelter until the storm passed. They ended up at an abandoned barn nearby, taking cover as rain poured down heavily. Inside the barn, the air smelled of old hay and dust. Clara sat on a wooden crate while Luke checked the roof for leaks. She spoke after a quiet moment. "You don't talk much, do you?" He looked at her, unsure how to answer. "Why? It makes people think you're hiding something." "I'm not hiding," Luke said quietly. "I just think before I speak." She looked at him with softer eyes this time. "That's not a bad thing." The storm lasted nearly an hour. During that time, they talked more than Luke talked with most people in a whole day. He learned she had moved to town because she wanted a new start, far away from the noise and pressure of city life. She learned that Luke had grown up on the ranch and never thought about leaving because the land felt like home to him. Their laughter filled the barn once or twice, breaking the awkwardness between them. When the rain finally slowed, they walked back to her wagon together. Luke repaired what he could and promised to bring proper tools the next morning. True to his word, he came back with tools and fixed the wheel completely. Clara thanked him with a smile that felt warmer than the sun returning after the storm. After that day, their paths crossed naturally at the market, near the creek, or on the dusty road leading out of town. Each time, Luke found himself learning something new about her. Clara wasn't just sharp-tongued. She was thoughtful, caring, and stronger than she looked. And Clara learned that Luke wasn't distracted because he didn't care. He was quiet because he cared too much. But not everyone saw things this way. People in town had their own opinions. Some whispered that Clara was too bold. Others said Luke was too quiet to match her. Rumors started forming like storm clouds. And though Clara pretended to ignore them, they affected her more than she admitted. One day, Luke saw her at the market. She glanced his way, then quickly looked down and walked to another row of stalls. He called her name softly, but she kept moving, pretending not to hear. Luke stood still, confusion and worry settling in his chest. He didn't know what changed or why she suddenly avoided him. He only knew one thing. His thoughts didn't wander anywhere near as much as people claimed. They circled around her. Again and again. Because she had come to mean something he didn't fully understand yet. But if he didn't find the courage to speak soon, he feared he might lose her before he even had the chance to say what she meant to him. The days after Clara started avoiding, Luke felt heavier than the storm clouds that often rolled across the plains. Luke was a patient man by nature, but patience didn't ease the tightness in his chest when he thought about her. He kept replaying their moments together, the jokes in the general store, the warm smiles after the rainstorm, the quiet conversation in the barn, the way her eyes softened whenever he finally managed to say something honest. All those memories felt warm. Yet now, they only left him wondering what he had done wrong. He tried to brush it off at first, telling himself she was just busy. Maybe she was settling into her new home, or taking care of errands. But the more he saw her turn away the moment she spotted him, the clearer things became. Something had changed, and he didn't know why. And if he didn't try to fix it, he might lose her completely. By the end of the week, Luke couldn't stop thinking about it. He had never been bold, but this time, he needed to be. So he saddled his horse one early morning, rode through the cool air, and followed the dirt road that led to Clara's small home near the creek. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with soft orange light. Birds sang gently in the nearby trees, as if encouraging him forward. His hands were shaking slightly when he reached her porch. He stepped onto the wooden boards, hesitated, and tried to gather his courage. He whispered to himself, "Just speak, don't overthink." But when he raised his hand to knock, the door opened on its own. Clara stood there. She looked surprised to see him, but not angry. Her hair was tied loosely, and she wore a simple dress with an apron still around her waist. She must have been preparing breakfast. What struck Luke most wasn't her appearance. It was her expression. She looked tired, maybe even a little sad. "Luke," she said quietly, "you're up early." He nodded, unable to find the right words at first. "I came to talk." Clara stepped aside. "Come in." Luke walked into her small home. It was neat and warm, with a table by the window and a small shelf filled with books. Clara closed the door gently and stood across from him. She didn't look away this time. She didn't try to avoid him. But her hands twisted nervously in front of her. "Why have you been ignoring me?" he asked softly. Clara looked down for a moment before answering. "I wasn't ignoring you. I was unsure." "Unsure about what?" She took a slow breath. "About us. About whether I should get close to someone like you." Luke frowned slightly. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," she said quickly, shaking her head. "You didn't do anything wrong." "Then why?" he asked, confusion clear in his voice. "You were fine with me before." She lifted her eyes and met his. "People talk, Luke. This town has a way of turning simple friendships into stories. They say I'm too bold. They say you're too quiet for someone like me. That we don't make sense together." Well, Luke felt something heavy settle in his chest. So it wasn't him, she doubted, it was the voices of others. He took a step closer, his voice steady. "Do you believe them?" Clara pressed her lips together. "I don't know. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm too much. Maybe you're too quiet. Maybe you think things you never say out loud. And I don't want to be someone who confuses your life." Luke shook his head. "You don't confuse my life, Clara. You make it clearer." She looked at him, surprised. He continued, speaking slowly, carefully, because he didn't want to say the wrong thing. "I know I'm not good with words. I know I think too much. But I never avoid people I care about. And I don't stare because I don't respect someone. I look at you because I'm trying to understand you." Clara's eyes softened again, just like they had during the storm. "Luke." He swallowed hard. This was the moment he had been afraid of speaking honestly. "I don't know how to say this the right way," he said. "But when I look at you, it's not because my thoughts wander. It's because they stop wandering. They settle." Clara's breath caught slightly, and she looked away for a moment to steady herself. When she turned back, her voice was softer. "I wasn't ignoring you because I didn't like you," she said. "I was scared you would listen to the town. That you'd think I wasn't the right kind of woman. I've heard enough gossip to know how people judge, and I didn't want to face you if you believed them." Luke shook his head again, more firmly this time. "I don't care what people say. I never have. Folks talked about me my whole life. Too quiet, too distant, too lost in my thoughts. If I listened to them, I wouldn't even know who I am anymore." Clara took a step closer. "And who are you, Luke?" He looked into her eyes, really looked. For once, he didn't look away. "I'm someone who wants to get to know you. Someone who wants to understand you. Someone who feels calmer when you're around." Clara let out a small, shaky laugh, her eyes shining. "I thought you didn't care at all." "I care," he said softly. maybe too much. The room fell quiet, but it wasn't awkward. It felt peaceful, like everything they had avoided was now open between them. Clara slowly reached out and touched his arm, her fingers gentle. "You should have told me sooner," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "I'm telling you now." She smiled, small at first, then warmer. "So what happens next?" Luke took a slow breath, gathering all the courage he had. "Maybe we walk together. Not worrying about what people say. Not letting what others think get between us." Clara nodded, her smile growing. "I'd like that." They stepped out of her home together. The sun higher now, warming the fields. Luke walked beside her with a quiet confidence he hadn't felt before. Every step felt lighter, and every moment felt right. Clara walked close, her arm brushing his lightly now and then, each touch a reminder that she wasn't avoiding him anymore. When they reached the town, a few people glanced their way. Some whispered, some smiled, but neither Luke nor Clara slowed down. They kept walking side by side, sharing small words, small laughs, and small moments that felt gentle and real. At one point, Clara nudged him playfully with her elbow. "Cowboy," she said in a teasing tone he remembered well, "keep your eyes in check." Luke looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't blush or look away. He smiled softly and said, "Not when they're looking at you." Clara's face warmed, and she shook her head, laughing under her breath. "You're learning to talk, Luke." "Only when it matters," he replied. They continued walking, the town slowly waking around them, and the future beginning to feel clearer. No more confusion, no more distance, no more silence that hurt more than words. Luke had finally found the courage to speak. And Clara had finally found someone who saw her not through the eyes of others, but through his own honest heart. And as they walked together through the quiet morning streets, it became clear to both of them that sometimes the quiet cowboy and the bold woman were not opposites, they were exactly what the other needed.